Assalamu alaikum. My name is Kaiser Aslam. I work as the Muslim chaplain at Rutgers University through the Center for Islamic Life. And today on Muslim, I'm going to be talking about Islamic phrases that Muslims use in their day-to-day lives. Let's talk about the phrase Allahu Akbar. And if there was a phrase that has been co-opted in really terrible ways, it would be Allahu Akbar. Because it means God is greater, God is the greatest. But oftentimes the way that it's been portrayed in media is it's done after the most vile acts are being committed, which is not the legacy of Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar has associated with it, it's this idea that God is greater. It's a proclamation. That's why when Muslims start their prayer, they start with Allahu Akbar. They put the whole world behind them because right now God is more important. And of course, at every moment God is more important, but when I say it, I'm truly internalizing it, and my next action will reflect that. Allahu Akbar is the phrase that's typically said when a baby is born. When a father or a mother first see their child, they say Allahu Akbar, God is greater. And the reason they say that is they're moved in that moment of such happiness, but they recognize if my experience has been elevated, who deserves to be elevated more? God. The idea of Allahu Akbar is as I develop as a person, God needs to constantly be raising in importance in my own life, and my language around God needs to become more complex. That's also found within Allahu Akbar. That the greatest good I can imagine, the greatest potential and actual experience of good needs to be increasing as I develop. So we say Allahu Akbar, God is greater, because when we appraise God, we appraise ourselves as well. A reality of Allahu Akbar, unfortunately, because of the way it's been portrayed in the media, because of the way that violent extremists have used this term, is that Muslims are oftentimes afraid to say Allahu Akbar out loud, even though it has been our tradition that instead of applauding someone, we'd actually just say Allahu Akbar very loudly. But now when you say Allahu Akbar loudly, you have to quickly look around and be like, are the cops coming? And that's an unfortunate reality we find ourselves in, and it really is time for Muslims to reclaim that word and not feel like it's something that they need to be ashamed of in any way. Be proud, because it's got such an amazing meaning. It has such a profound effect in the way you experience life, and in the way that you can also remind others to experience life as well. God to us is the greatest embodiment of good, is the greatest potential for good, and why not have a phrase that encapsulates that whenever something good happens? Allahu Akbar, God is greater, so that we will chase after whatever that greatness is. Another common phrase that Muslims use is Astaghfirullah, may God have mercy on me. And Astaghfirullah is a term that is really over-encompassing of any time you feel like you need the mercy of God, which is actually in every scenario. Astaghfirullah will be something that's said when someone sees something maybe they're not supposed to. Astaghfirullah is said when something has been said that they're not supposed to say. Astaghfirullah can even be used when you forgot something. It could be that you were supposed to end up with lunch with someone and they're calling you and you're like, oh, Astaghfirullah. That's an appropriate term. How could I not make this commitment that I was supposed to be at? And the first person who you need to seek forgiveness from is God, and that leads you to seeking the forgiveness of the creation of God. We say Astaghfirullah verbally to remind ourselves that actually I'm dependent on the mercy of God. So it's a humble act of understanding perfection is not for me, perfection is for God. What I need is actually the mercy of God. So it's actually an admission of our own faults, and it's an admission that we can have faults, because one of the names of God is actually Al-Ghaffar, the one who forgives. So it's an expectation that one of the ways you're going to get close to God is by messing up. So Astaghfirullah is actually not a way of really making whatever mistake you made, like aggrandizing it to something terrible. It's actually quite the opposite of understanding, no, I'm going to make mistakes, and actually one of the ways to God is through mistakes. Astaghfirullah, or astaghz, as sometimes it's said online in short form, is also what can be used when someone else does something that we maybe consider is sinful. And there's actually something beautiful in that we don't call the other person out, we call ourselves out. That when we see something wrong happening outside of us, we actually say, Astaghfirullah, may God have mercy on me. We don't say, may God have mercy upon you. We actually don't have a legacy of Tastaghfirullah, which would be, may God have mercy on you. We don't have that saying. It's always on me. So Astaghfirullah is supposed to be when you sincerely feel like, oh no, I need to seek the forgiveness of God. That means I need to get closer to God. Not, I'm about to do something maybe God doesn't want me to, but I'll just say Astaghfirullah anyway. It cannot be used as a justification of our worst behavior, but if our worst behavior came out, then we still rely on God. If you want more in-depth content on any of the things that we talked about today, any of these phrases, there's actually a series of this that I have put up on the Center for Islamic Life at Rutgers University on our YouTube page. You can find us at youtube.com/silru or on Facebook at facebook.com/silru. Feel free to follow us there, and if we can ever be of service to you, don't hesitate to reach out.